was my fire truck. Hello. And that's because today we're going back for more Joseph Murphy pointers. So yeah, let's dive right in to more of the good juicy stuff. The helpful pointers at the end of The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. If you haven't watched some of the recent videos, Joseph Murphy has helpful pointers at the end of each chapter, and they're brilliant. And I said in a recent video that you could basically read some of these pointers, especially like on a chapter that felt relevant to you, that day or that week. You can read some of those pointers and contemplate them, and that in itself is it's a pretty good daily practice to do something like that, to make us feel more aligned with, you could say, God. If you didn't want to use spiritual language, you could just say just to feel more like alive and present. And, when I started the Law of Attraction Explored, the podcast, we were talking about Murphy and the power of your subconscious mind at a lot of the early episodes. That was kind of how I introduced a lot of the main subjects of the podcast. And that's not coincidental. That's because the power of your subconscious mind is probably like the best introduction to a lot of these very profound law of attraction principles. And it's the best introduction because Murphy gives so many different examples of how it works and different techniques and methods for getting it to work for you in your life. Again, to get you to feel better, to get you to manifest better things in your life, to get you to feel like you're, more in touch with your life, more in tune with your life. If you want to use spiritual language, more in tune with God. The power of your subconscious mind, has all that stuff going on in it. So if you have like a kind of spiritual bent, but you don't know exactly what you're looking for, or if a teacher like Neville just seems too confusing, the power of your subconscious mind is pretty much always a good place to turn. I think that, it could probably be worthwhile for some of you who are new to this channel to listen to some early episodes of my podcast. I mean, honestly, I always tell people, if you want to hear about a lot of great law of attraction ideas, just listen to my podcast from the beginning. Go on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts and start at episode 1 and just, skip episodes that don't interest you. But it's worthwhile to do that probably if you like this channel. So helpful pointers, we're still on the chapter about harmonious human relations. So harmonious human relations, oh my gosh, we might be able to tie this in with SP stuff. Harmonious human relations, obviously it's a huge part of life, but it's important to understand, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, like a lot of harmonious human relations are just about being able to listen to somebody and not necessarily agree with a lot of what they're saying, but still being able to respect them, still being able to communicate with them, even though you don't always see eye to eye. And the reason that so much of the SP advice you hear is just baloney is because you're dealing with a person when you're in a relationship, another person. And there are going to be disagreements. There are going to be plenty of times where you don't see eye to eye. It's not always just going to be galloping in the fucking wind, on your horsies together. Stuff happens. And you want to react as maturely as you can. And these helpful pointers that Murphy has are just reminding us of that. So point 8 from this chapter. Animals pick up your fear vibrations and snap at you. If you love animals, they will never attack you. Many undisciplined human beings are just as sensitive as dogs, cats, and other animals. I'm sure that many of you animal lovers out there can relate to that. I'm going to probably I'll link above or below. This reminds me of something we discussed, that great Emile Coué anecdote he has about a dog attacking you. But Murphy says here, many undisciplined human beings, meaning, inwardly undisciplined, the kind of stuff we're talking about, inner work, where you are more aware of how you're feeling and thinking. If you're undisciplined in that regard, often, we can be as sensitive as dogs and cats. We're overly sensitive, It's like, I see my almost 5-year-old and her friends, and it's like, honey, you're getting a little bit upset. And they're like, I'm not upset. They're screaming and yelling. I'm not yelling. We're sensitive, and if you're not in touch with that sensitivity, your emotional reactions are going to be, up and down. And if you're not aware of that, like in a relationship, where you're with like a partner, they're going to be largely affected by that. And if you're unable to apologize and just be aware of your feelings and say, I was reacting this way, I hope that didn't affect you too much by doing that. If you don't do that, it's probably going to irritate the other person. Point 9, your inner speech, representing your silent thoughts and feelings, is experienced in the reactions of others towards you. It's pretty far out. This is what we were talking about a lot with autosuggestion and what we naturally suggest to ourselves. Your inner speech, what you're actually thinking and suggesting to yourself, like just automatically, like what comes up, represents your silent thoughts and feelings. Like that's what actually is going on. That is, you could say, controlling your life. On a pragmatic level, like what you're constantly thinking to yourself. Like, are you thinking to yourself, like, I'm, a healthy, good person? Or are you thinking to myself, I'm not good enough, there's something wrong with me? There's an incredible difference between those two train of thoughts. Becoming more aware of that is very well worthwhile. And these train of thoughts you have, these self-suggestions, whether they be good or bad, and listen, in reality, there is no good or bad, but on a personal level, you're going to know, like when you feel good, that your train of thought is probably pretty good right now. And when you feel bad, you'll probably recognize your train of thought is not very good right now. But what your train of thought is, you're going to experience in the reaction of others towards you, in the big picture of things, if you constantly feel like your train of thought is very negative, you're probably going to experience more negative interactions with people in your outer world. And if you have a very positive train of thought, you're probably going to experience a lot of positive interactions with people in your outer world. Tying this into SP stuff, if you're desperate for a certain person or just a romantic partner in general, if your train of thought is desperation, you're going to meet a lot. That's going to be reflected in your outer world. So it's not like you're just going to meet other desperate people. I don't mean that. I mean, you're going to put yourself in situations where you consistently feel desperate. And with an SP, what you want is love, right? You want love, respect, deep harmony, or, whatever virtues and qualities you think a good romantic relationship would give you. That train of thought, that positive train of thought of all those lovely qualities you want, is very, very different than a desperate train of thought, the train of thought of desperation. Your silent thoughts and feelings. As we've gone over, they aren't really silent. They're really there. If you pick up on them, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's not actually a silent thought. That's a thought, just a little thought that I have so often. It's just my default and I accept it. And like those uncomfortable feelings where I'm like, oh, I don't know why I'm uncomfortable. They're actually there for like a reason. Like it's probably because of a huge train of thoughts that you've had that are so subtle that you don't even notice when they're there. And, your body picks up on them and it makes it feel uncomfortable. Maybe it makes you feel desperate. We want to become aware of that and neutralize that and then shift it to something which is more open and free and good feeling. If we can do that, we'll be more able to feel good within ourselves and more able to attract the right partner if you are looking for an SP type situation or whatever. Point 10. Wish for the other what you wish for yourself. This is the key to harmonious human relations. It's basically, again, it's the golden rule. This is so important. And again, it's so easy to get off track when we hear LOA advice, law of attraction, law of assumption, SP advice, all this stuff. I don't care what you call it. It's all basically the same principles, right? But a lot of it in terms of human relations, almost all of it, you could say, boils down to wish for the other what you wish for yourself. If you do that and you feel good about the other, you feel better about yourself if you do that. Again, we were talking about win-win relationships. There's no reason really, if we just are sober-minded about it, not to feel good about ourselves and good about the other. That is not manipulative. That is honest and loving and decent. And reflection, prayer, meditation, contemplating these things can make us realize that love that's just there. And it's just there right now. We can say it's self-love, we can say it's love for the other, but it's just there. It's powerful. All right?